welcome everybody. We really appreciate you coming here for this discussion this afternoon. This is ongoing forums put on by the Hamtramck NAACP. My name is Bill Meyer. I'm the Vice President of the Hamtramck NAACP. And I know it's not something that everybody likes to do, is get out in the afternoon and talk about racism and discrimination and all that sort of stuff, which is a very vital, important issue, but I'm sure we'd all like to be watching a football game or something else, but this is important. And you people deserve all the respect for coming here and being concerned enough about this issue. So I, first of all, would like to give you all a round of applause. Let's give each other a round. Thank you. And that also gets the blood moving in our hands, and we're waiting now. Okay, so here we go. I want to introduce you to the room and what's going on here. First of all, we have several tables. We have a sales table right here of DVDs from our previous forums, and also some t-shirts from the Hamtramck NAACP. And if you care to pick any of that up, our friend Mike Kapushniak is sitting there, and he'd be glad to take your $5 or whatever it costs for that. We also have a membership table when you first came in there where you signed in. As a matter of fact, Tisha, could you bring me that membership list? Okay, if you're not a member of the Hamtramck NAACP, we encourage you to join. We need members and we need activist members also. So one of our secretaries is here. This is Darla Swint, and she will, and she has membership forms, okay. And before you leave today, if you'd like to join us, please do that. Also, we have a youth table, and Tisha Franklin, our treasurer here, is in charge of the new youth council here in Hamtramck that we're trying to develop, and Tisha's going to be heading that, and we'd like you to talk to her if you're interested in that aspect of our work with the NAACP. It's a long-established organization, as you know, 100-year anniversary a couple of years ago, so it's going into 102 years as one of the longest civil rights organizations in the world. So also, we have some wonderful food over here, and you're all invited to partake anytime throughout this discussion. And we'd like to thank Twyla Meyer for helping put the food together, and Renee Farber for helping with the food, and Tisha and Juanita, thank you for the food. Now we know some of you are fasting, and it'll be here till at least 6:30 when we're done here, so feel free to join us then. And now I have some thanks to go out here. I'd like to first of all thank the NAACP Executive Board, and I think most of us are here, so I'd like you to meet us. The president of the Hamtramck NAACP is Juanita Seifers, and she's at the front table there. Juanita? We have two vice presidents. I'm one of them, and Kamal Rahman is the other one, and he's not here. We have our secretaries, which is Darla Swint is our secretary of the NAACP. Our assistant secretary is Robert Zwolek, back there, Robert Zwolek. And our treasurer, the people that take our membership money, is treasurer and assistant treasurer. This is Tisha Franklin at the front table, our treasurer. And she's also the head of the youth council, so she's going to have her hands full. Not that she doesn't already have her hands full. But also, Twyla Meyer is the assistant treasurer with our Hamtramck NAACP committee. That's the 7 of us. And we do have 5 other members of the executive committee that you'll see their names in the newsletter. We have a newsletter that's published for the first time this month. Please make sure you get a copy of it. It's at the front table there. It lists our activities when we meet. We meet once a month, the first Saturday of every month in Hamtramck. Also, I'd like to thank the committee who helped us put this together here, and especially Ken Bean, who is our video person over here, who came in early and helped us set up, and he's videotaping this program. Thank you, Ken. And the hall here is always supportive. I want you to know that Tom Cervenak and People's Community Services are always available to help the community, and we appreciate you for letting us have this event here. Tom Cervenak and the people who work here, Rose Hyder, and Jane is at the front. Is Jane out front there? Okay, and also Raymond Martin helped us out. Let's give the People's Community Services that round. And also, in organizing this specific forum about Muslims, Arabs, and the NAACP, we approached the Hamtramck High School principal, and we'd like to thank Rebecca Westrate, the new principal at the high school. She couldn't be here today, but she helped us immensely in helping to procure some students to help us for this program. So we thank, in absence, Ms. Stensia, Ms. Westrate, the principal of the high school. Also, I would like to thank the person standing in for him today is a teacher at the high school, and a good friend of mine, actually. It's Mike Stenvig. Let's give a nice welcome to Mike Stenvig. Wave your hand, Mike. Okay. Now, before we start, let me tell you what the formality is. I got many more dignitaries I want to introduce, but before I do that, let you know what we're doing. I'm going to finish introducing the rest of the important people here, which is everybody here, I guess, but we'll single out a few. We're going to introduce the students first. They're going to come and talk for about half an hour, and then we're going to invite our adult guests to come up and speak about what was said about the students, and that'll be about an hour with the adults. And all through this, we have a roving mic here, and I want you to just raise your hand anytime throughout the discussion while they're talking. If you want to add to the discussion, we don't want this just talk, and then at the end you ask questions. If you hear something that you want to address, feel free, please, to raise your hand. I'm sure our guests would be more than happy to address your concerns right then, and I'll just bring the mic over to you. We have no time limit, although try to be fair to everybody and help contribute to the discussion. So we want everybody to participate. We have from the UAW, we have Ying Ji right here, came from the UAW. She's our secretary at the Solidarity House. Thank you for joining us, Ying Ji. She helped us organize the Hamtramck NAACP branch when we reorganized 2 years ago. We thank you for that help. Of course, the legendary icon in Hamtramck, who has been with the NAACP for years, Miss Yvonne Meyer, and she's also on the school board of Hamtramck. Miss Meyer. We have the superintendent of Hamtramck Schools, is Tom Nichai, is with us today. Tom Nichai. We have the school president from the middle school, Kosciuszko, Nuo Ivezdi. Nuo, thank you for joining us. And from Holbrook School, we have Russ Robinson. Thank you, Russ, for joining us. And we have an election coming up. For those of you who don't realize, in Hamtramck on Tuesday we have a very important election. We have 5 candidates running for the council seat. We have, how many running for the school board? 6, is it? 6? Okay, I know we have 1 candidate for the school board. It's Darla Swint, right here. And is there any other candidates for the school board? Okay. Well, we have 5 candidates for the city council, and Robert Zwolik is one of the candidates. Robert Zwolik. Abdulhakem is another candidate. He actually helped us organize this event from the beginning. It was his idea to have an event in the Arab community so that we could involve the Arab community with the NAACP. So we're following his role, and thank you, Dr. Al-Ghazali. And then Kathy Gordon is another candidate running, and Dilshad Chowdhury could not be here, he's working today. And the 5th candidate, Anamia. So those are the 5 candidates. For those of you who live in Hamtramck and want to know more about these candidates, I had a chance to interview each one of them, asked them all the same questions. They had the same amount of preparation to answer the questions. It's online, you can go to YouTube and look up Hamtramck Council candidate. And all 5 will come up, and they all speak and address all the questions equally. And you can get a better idea of where they're all coming from. I wish we could have done it for the school board candidates, but we didn't have time to pull that off. So you can get a better idea of the 5 council candidates by going online to YouTube, or you can go to our own website, which is OneHamtramck.org, ONEHamtramck.org. Okay, so now we're going to introduce you to our students. We have 3 students here. One of them that was scheduled couldn't be here, but we have a stand for that person. We're very fortunate to do that. Let me make sure I have the paper here. Okay, first, our first guest that's going to be here from the high school is Simone El Hagri. Simone El Hagri. We want to give her a nice round of applause. Please come up, Simone. And we also, she's in the 11th grade. We have a 12th grader with us, actually a good friend of mine, Lopez Davis. Lopez is here. Let's give Lopez a nice welcome. Lopez and I are on the same volleyball team, and he's an exceptional athlete, so watch out for this guy, okay? And then, unfortunately, Shahan Ali could not be here, but we do have a great stand, and we appreciate Syed Rahman for joining us. Syed Rahman, let's give him a welcome. He's in the 10th grade. Syed is a Bangladeshi, Simone is Yemeni, and we just wanted you to know the background, so it has a little bit to do with our discussion today, because we're talking about anti-Muslim and anti-Islamic sentiment in the community, and also the long history of racism in society. Now, we're not talking about Hamtramck specifically because there's been no incidences. We have good people here. We want to make sure we don't have issues in the future, and that's why we're going to talk about this and prevent it, because I think racism and discrimination is the issue that's kept undercover most of the time, and people just say it doesn't exist, or they don't want to address it. So some people do think it exists, and we want to make sure that we bring it outboard and address it. So there's some terms that we're going to be using that we want to make sure we're sure about. The racism and racial discrimination. It's discrimination on an ethnic or cultural basis. According to the United Nations, however, there is no distinction between the term racial discrimination and ethnicity discrimination. The United Nations considers them the same. Islamophobia, we've heard many times. This describes prejudice against or hatred or irrational fear of Islam or Muslims. It came into usage more after 9/11, and it's been an increasing trend as more Muslims come to America. We have several communities of color in Hamtramck. We have African Americans for many, many years here. Of course, African Americans people have suffered the worst Holocaust in world history. With the death toll from 4 centuries of Atlantic slave trade, it's estimated about 10 million lost lives. And we're still paying the price for this in our society. Bangladeshis came from a country that's one of the poorest in the world. 30% of their population was below the poverty line as of 2011. 3 million were killed in the ethnic fighting in 1972. There's been allegations of rape, ethnic cleansing in Bangladesh. They're going through war crimes trials today in Bangladesh. Now, although Arabs are considered white in the US Census, we all know that discrimination exists against the society, against the Arab society. There's been a rise after 9/11. Here's a quote: "The only vicious racial stereotype that's not only still permitted, but actively endorsed in Hollywood is that of Arabs as crazed terrorists." That still is allowed. Now, Yemen, it's on the edge of civil war right now. It has a growing opposition movement to the rule of their president, Saleh. They're going in turmoil right now. These people that live in the city, that all somehow ended up together in Hamtramck, all have a history, their own history. And some of you can read about this or hear about this in a movie that I produced called Home Sweet. That's on our website, OneHamtramck.org. Interviews with immigrants in Hamtramck, and we're trying to find common ground with everybody. And I think if we appreciate the background of everybody, we can appreciate each other's common needs in society. So we have 3 students here who have lived through a few years of high school in Hamtramck. Hamtramck, probably the most diverse community, one of the most diverse communities in the country. This is 2 square miles, and it's been said many times in like 26 languages spoken in the high school. But we all know that. We have a great opportunity here to learn from each other's cultures. So what we're going to try to find out now is, in the past we've heard of some ethnic fighting in the high school. We all have explanations how this happened, what causes this, some of the solutions. So we're going to address this, and I was happy to find out when I went to high school that there's a much better sense of feeling in the high school at this point. I haven't heard about much fighting in the newspaper anymore, and I think things have changed somewhat. So we want the students to come here and be as honest and forthright as they can in an audience sitting here like this. So I want to make this comfortable for our students. We're not putting them on a grilling table here. We just want them to say what they really have to say, things that they aren't allowed to say a lot of times in a controlled environment. This is uncontrolled. You can say what you need to say, that's important. And the audience, please raise your hands anytime you have a question. We'll sort of have a dialogue if we can do this. So, I just want to first ask the 3 of them, and you can speak anytime you want. Let's make sure your mics are working. Can you test them? Just say a word.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, why don't we just go one at a time? Lopez, could you just give us a little background about your experience in terms of race and discrimination, your life in high school since you've been there, and any issues related to that, and what you've been doing in high school? Just in a few minutes, and then we'll give the other 2 a chance to introduce yourselves.
My life in high school was
Not well, it was awesome so far. So I really haven't experienced any discrimination upon myself, but I do see other children being discriminated on for different types of reasons, and I think that's it.
Okay, we'll start with that. That's good. Okay, let's see Syed. Syed was just put in the hot seat. He wasn't going to be on the panel, and now he volunteered to help us out because we had an empty seat here. So, give us a little bit of your background in high school.
I'm only in the 10th grade right now, so far everything's been good with me, nothing involving me or anything, and everything, I see it, like Lopez said, I see it often, other kids discriminated and stuff like that, so that's about it.
Okay, and now our third guest today, Simone. Can you give us a little of your background in high school?
Well, I'm loud enough as it is. I don't think I need a microphone, but I'm a junior, and I'm very school involved, and the first thing that people are amazed to find out is that I'm Arabic, and I'm school involved. And so the discrimination portion, I've always been discriminated about that. Like, they're shocked to find out that I'm very outgoing and that I kind of break the barriers of what a Muslim girl is. And so that's my experience. But so far, I've been able to show people that being Muslim and being an Arabic girl, it's more than just what they see.
Okay, thank you. Now, that's the first introduction. I guess the question next would be, there's been fighting in school. It's probably lessened at this point. However, we wonder if you could each give us your idea of why there's fighting going on. What causes student fighting, and especially if there's any possibility of race or discrimination or ethnicity having a factor in this. Anybody can speak.
I think it starts at home, at the home base. If the child was raised to be violent, that person is going to be violent until someone steps in and tell them not to be violent or discipline them to the point that they can respect others. And it involves with the world society and what people think of themselves, or I should be this small, or I should have this type of shirt, or this type of jeans, or these pair of shoes. And if you don't have those, you're considered no one. And no one should be discriminated upon because of what you wear. As long as God provided you with clothes on shoes on your feet and clothes on your body, you should be happy and grateful instead of fighting and trying to prove a point to someone else.
Okay, so we shouldn't be fighting, but the question is, why do you think people are fighting in high school?
A lot of people are fighting. It's because of the stuff that you wear, and sometimes people like make judgments upon each other. And so when someone tells someone else, "Oh, you look ugly," and that person takes it offensive, that person's going to get mad and retaliate from that.
I think adding on to what Lopez is saying, the home basis, I think it's the way they were raised and the values that their family holds. And most often, you'll find that, we're teenagers, we're angsty, and we're full of emotion. And I think that collides when kids don't understand one another. And again, the way they were raised, like, for example, the African American and the Muslim or Arabic, I think most times it's because, it's just, one person fights with the other person, and it just so happens that it's race. So most times it's not really race, but I think it's just the mentality that the certain person has.
Yeah, I agree with both. It does kind of start at the home. It depends on what they were taught and how to act sometimes, and some kids do just pass judgment for no reason, like are quick to judge, and if something easily just breaks out.
So to emphasize on that, I think it's just being a teenager and emotions, and then the mentality, and then society as well, the way they, the perception that we have, and I think that's one of the leading factors.
Okay, so you're all three saying you don't think race or ethnicity is a factor, or in this case, there isn't?
I think it is often. It's just like, it starts off with one or two kids, and then everyone just decides they have to have to back up their own race and help them out, and then it becomes like gangs versus gangs, or like groups versus groups?
I think in some cases, but not always. It's the issue or the problem that they have with one another. But yeah, sometimes I do think it's racial as well.
Yes, sorry. Wait a minute. We have a recording, so we have to give you a mic when you talk.
So it sounds as though you all are kind of skating around the need to be specific and answer the question. Exactly, what is it? You know, you're skating at it. What is it that's causing the fighting?
Like I said, it's the society. Like, people think it's a competition of what you need to do. Like, there's already a competition in the world trying to compete and getting to major colleges. What I'm saying is there's competition saying like, well, who wears this and who wears that. Like, when I was in high school, well, I am in high school, but still, there really wasn't no racial tension between anyone. So that's really it.
Well, I'll go with your answer, and I'll say that it is, because it's misunderstanding. So yeah.
Can I ask my question? From your point of view, as a youth point of view, from your perspective, what do you think the solution for the problems that's happened exactly in your school, not outside of your school? From your perspective, I don't want to know what other people think. I want to know what you think as a youth, as high school students.
I think it would be the fights and the conflicts and violence would be less if kids were just more educated about other people's race and religion and all that, and they wouldn't worry about all that much, and they were just educated better at home and stuff.
So yeah, put them in a room and kind of have people, like adults, advisors, sit there and kind of, you know, I think it's an old-fashioned way, but it's the best way to kind of have the two students or whatever students that are going or that are in the conflict currently, and kind of just set them down and tell them. It's what we need. We need to, you know, we need people to listen to us, but most importantly, we need to be informed.
I think the foundation, like I say, is from the household. If their parents is not educated, how is the students going to be educated? I mean, there's nothing else you can explain about that. Because my mom was educated. She taught me how to respect elders, and not even elders, everyone around me. So I think that's it, yeah.
Question here?
No, I actually want to congratulate the young men and the young women for being out there and agreeing to do this. I know it's tough, and I know you're nervous, but continue. You're doing a wonderful job. My name is Meyer. I'm a principal at Kishushka Middle School, and I've been a teacher in Hamtramck for 28 years, teaching and administration. And I agree with the kid. Somebody asked, why do fights start? So why do fights start in any school? I mean, fights have been in schools, kids have had conflicts and altercation. It becomes a racial issue only, in my experience, only after we have talked to the parents. And the parents, especially if the kids happen to be from two different ethnic communities or two different races, then it sort of becomes an issue. Kids start fighting not because one is black and one is Arab or one is white, because somebody bumped into somebody and somebody tripped somebody. At that moment, when the fight occurs in the building, it is not because one is white and one is black. The issue becomes after they have left the building, after they have gone home, after they have talked to the friends and the parents and so forth, then it's, oh, yes, you know, he was attacked by a black student, or he was attacked by an Arab student, and eventually, especially if it happens, if the fight or altercation occurs on a Friday afternoon, then they have the whole weekend to discuss it on Facebook, texting, and then we got to deal with it on Monday morning.
So you're saying it creates a problem once the kids get involved, but I'm just being honest here. The whole racial fighting it was an annual event every year, and it was racial because you know, it happened so long ago, and then it's like, well, every year we're going to do the same. So it's like, for example, the African American versus the Arabics, it was an annual event. It's exactly how it went, and it didn't matter what season or what time or what year. It would happen all the time.
But I understand what you're talking about. But to understand what Mr. Eveza was talking about, he was saying that at the point, for an example, someone stole someone's money, and the person was African American. There was a person that was Arabic American. And so that African American says, he stole my money. And so at that point, they're conflicting and telling, well, I want my money back. Those two are fighting until over the weekend, they're going to tell their parents, and their parents are going to try to find the other person's parents. Then they're going to try to report to Hamtramck Public Schools saying, this is what happened, this is what happened. And then all that instigating is going to start and create, and then those African American people is going to gather all their African American people so they won't lose the battle. It isn't like, oh, African Americans and Arabics are hating each other.
But it's the mentality that students have, and that's what kind of creates the conflict. But I understand what you guys are coming from and what you're saying, Mr. Eveza, that sometimes it doesn't start just because of the race, it's because of the issue, and then it kind of, you know, leads on further. But I mean, his question was, is it a contributing factor? And I say, when the whole you know, instigating, you know, becomes a problem, then yeah, it does.
I want to echo Mr. Eveza's sentiments and say thank you to the three of you for doing this. I think it's very timely. As a principal of an elementary school, and having been in Hamtramck now for the last 4 years, I'd like to know kind of your opinion about where you believe this starts, how young it starts. Because I'm going to give you my experience and tell you that in the elementary school, I see this in the elementary school. And sort of along the same lines as Mr. Eveza says, but I also, one of you mentioned it starts in the home. And I have parent conversations whenever there are any kind of conflicts, things happen, parents have to come in to see me. I see this sentiment and these issues in the conversations I have with the parents, where there's a feeling about the other race or a feeling about, I've had parents of both races, and in my school particularly, we have a mixture of races, but primarily Yemeni students and African American students. I've heard Yemeni parents speak negatively about African Americans. I've heard African American parents speak negatively about Yemeni. And that starts, and I see some of the conflict happen in second, third grade, fourth grade. So I'm wondering, from your experience, where did you see that? Did you notice it when you were younger, when you were in elementary school and you were growing up? Did you see some of the same things? Or is it really escalated once you've got to the high school where kids are older and we have many more influences such as Facebook and those sort of things Mr. Eveza spoke about?
Well, I think nowadays it is, especially because we have 12-year-olds on Facebook, or, you know, kids trying to grow up, you know, and so quickly, whereas in my generation it kind of wasn't like that. But I understand what you're saying, and sometimes it's what he said, it starts from the home, but I think most importantly, this is just my opinion, but sometimes I feel like parents don't care to educate themselves. And what he said, if parents don't educate themselves, then how will kids? And I think it's what they see, and you know, it can start at any age.
I think that people misjudge people. They only seen the outside of the house, but they haven't stepped inside the house. That's just like saying, I met you and said hello and what's your name, instead of getting into the person's life and understanding where they come from. And I really didn't experience any conflicts until I got to my 9th grade year. And that's when you see other people like getting mad with each other. But the world today is to like compete, and so everyone has to compete on everything. There's no room, oh, I'm going to give you a job here on the side, or I'm just going to give you a high position. You have to compete for that. So all these students right now are competing and trying to get those high positions and those good grades and get into these good schools. So that's what I think.
And I think it's because it's been a building block to whatever, like the conflict that's been happening with the whole racial thing. And I think that's where people get it from. That's where, you know, the parents get it from. Yeah, they're not educated, but I feel like it's because, you know, they just, it's an excuse.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why can't you educate the parents that there's no difference
Right.
about any problem that you may have? We are supposed to be Americans. Most of us came here from somewhere else.
So you're asking me why I don't educate them?
Any child,
Any child.
you can educate your parents just like your parents educate you about any problem. Am I right? Or am I wrong?
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, and here in Hamtramck, it's my understanding, and I am a student, it's only over 38 different nationalities. You have to learn to work together. I've been in Hamtramck since 1922, and I've been on the same street since 1922. So I am aware of everything, and I wasn't a person that would go home by it. I did go out and try to see what's going on. But it's up to you. It's just like if I come down the street and I said good morning to you and you don't say good morning, does that mean the next time I come down the street I see you don't say good morning? Sometimes you have to be friendly too.
Right, I understand. Sometimes kids just want to be ignorant about the situation or whatever the situation is. And I think sometimes you have to educate yourself, and like you said, sometimes you have to be friendly. And some kids don't want to do that.
You shouldn't say you don't have to be friendly.
Oh, I know.
You should be friendly. I don't mean buddy, but
Yeah, no, I know.
and that's no way of saying good morning or good evening or how are you or nothing wrong.
But see, because I educated myself, I'm aware.
Yeah, next question's back here.
Did I answer your question? We can talk further.
Yeah, we can continue.
Yeah.
I have kind of an idea, not an idea, but if we comprehend that the parents already are uneducated and they're not grasping this racial conflict that might be happening with different races and things in school, is it not up to the school and the students then to kind of get a sensitivity concept going where they're aware that there's home problems instead of just blaming the parents?
No, definitely.
And because it's already a done deal. If people are already not educated about being racially sensitive, then they're not. And then you have to think of ideas of how to do that, how to help that happen. Because otherwise, nobody's going to be helping anybody. And also, I wondered, is there ever issues with certain teachers that may not support a sensitive position on race and maybe even help it be the opposite, kind of instigate problems? I don't know, but I'm asking.
Well, for me, if I haven't had a teacher who was very racial discriminated upon me, but because all Hamtramcks, just put it like this, all students have to get along with everyone. But if there's a problem when that teacher is saying that, hey little black boy, hey little Arab girl, come up here and do this problem on the board, that's a problem. But all students have to work with everyone no matter what, because they have to grow up. There's no sugarcoating, no nothing. You have to grow up and face the world and face the public in order for you to compete. So teachers at Hamtramck Public Schools, period, are not racially, they do not racially discriminate other kids.
I've never seen it, and I'm a junior, but I've seen kids do it, and they think it's funny, but we don't think it's funny. But students who kind of do care about the whole racial issue, and I do understand what you're saying. How can we get the parents and most importantly the kids to understand that, and to break the whole barrier of the racial issue? You're right. How do we?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you said, and what she said. It's up to us. We're the youth. If it's it's up to our generation to make the change. Like the last generation, we can't do anything about it. If they're not helping their kids, telling their kids what to do, then oh well. it's up to us, and like that's why I said we should like try really hard to get our generation educated about this stuff and the violence that happens from racial problems.
Because like what he said, like in the real world, like I've been put into scenarios and Lopez has, and it doesn't matter. I mean, once you're put in the work field, no one cares if you're Arabic or if you're African American. You know, it's you can get the job done. So I think we should kind of put that point across that it shouldn't matter.
Okay, we're right on schedule here. We're going to conclude this section with our friend Tisha Franklin, who's the treasurer of the Hamtramck NAACP, and she's also the head of the youth council that's being formed here in Hamtramck. So she gets you get the last word, Tisha.
Thank you. Welcome to our forum today. You have 3 outstanding students here. These are not the students that are in the office. These are not the students who are racially discriminatory. These are the leaders that we have in our public schools, and they are wonderful. I wish we had a panel of those who are in the office all the time, who are racially discriminate against people. I want to just piggyback on a couple things that these young people have said, and one is parents. I think, or my experience in Hamtramck, I'm a Hamtramck public school teacher as well. I work at Dickinson West. I'm a 5th grade teacher there. I'm from Hamtramck, born and raised, went to St. Florian, which is now Frontier. And I've been here all of my life, and I've seen racial discrimination. This is a place where every and anybody can come to live. And we love that about Hamtramck. But there are some deep-rooted racism in some of the older generation that still lives here and is carrying through with our youngsters. So that's one thing. So I think we have 2 different kind of populations. We have an older population who still has some of that deep-rooted racism. They've experienced racism from people right here in the community. And so they speak out in their homes. They say things that their kids over here, that their grandchildren over here. And so I think that comes into play. And then we do have that one population in between the first generation parents of our young kids who are informed. They're trying to survive right now. It's a bad economy right now. They're just trying to survive. Some of them aren't raising their children as they could be. So I think that's an issue. Far as my issue and my other issue was, and I wanted to ask you all this, if you see this, because this is what I see sometimes. I see that Muslim women are unable to date. And so Muslim men find dating in other women. They will go to other races to date outside their races. Maybe they'll date blacks, maybe they'll date white girls, where they could have relationships with them, where they can't have those relationships with Muslims. And perhaps does that start some animosity between boys of different cultures and different races?
Definitely.
Because I find that happening all the time, and I find that Muslim boys drive nice cars, wear nice clothes, and so they have things that other kids don't have, and that's going back to what Lopez said. They have things that other kids don't have, and so it starts a fight. It starts there's animosity, there's arguments there, because you have what I want what you have, and arguments are started there. So if we get to something, I don't know if I'm hitting the hammer on the nail or not, but we as a community have to come together, and we all have to be unified. We have to show our children what we want it to look like, what it should feel like, what the environment should be like. And so I am starting a youth council, hoping that you will get your grandkids and your children involved, because they are the future of our generation, and we have to teach them to live in a global society. They're going to have to work with multiracial people. That's how we all are going to advance. That's how we all are going to do well, when we all work together.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. She's one of our teachers in Hamtramck. We're very fortunate to have her.
What's the age range that you're looking for the council?
We're looking for kids from 8 and to 20.
Okay, thank you.
However, she'll explain there's 3 different groupings in the NAACP. There's one under 14, and then 14 to 20, and then there's one above that. There's 3 different age groups. There's a high school group. But she'll explain it all. If you could participate, or you have young people who you think should be part of this, please see Ms. Franklin. She's a teacher over at Kosciuszko School now in the east. It's called West Dickinson. They're inside Kosciuszko building. So we're going to conclude this section right now, and we thank everybody who spoke. This is started out very well, and we didn't introduce you as you spoke, but because we wanted just to keep the flow going. But this was a great discussion, and we want to thank you, students, so much for joining us. Simone, hang on, I'm going to say your name correctly. Simone El-Hagri. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Let's give her a nice round of applause. Lopez Davis. And Saeed Rama, the three students. Thank you. That was a great start to our discussion, and obviously it's just the start. And we have a lot more to talk about that issue, so we thank you, young students, who, as Ms. Franklin said, these are some of our exceptional students, and we thank you for participating in this presentation. So now we're going to turn to our very special adult guests, and I'll introduce you to them one at a time as they take their seats here. First we have from the Muslim Political Action Committee, we have he's known also as Super Lawyer, I guess is his name. Okay, Super Lawyer. But he's also with the NAACP in Detroit. He's on the Legal Aid, Board of Legal Aid. He's Pakistani, and we're very fortunate to have him join us. Everybody I talk to who says Muddasar Tawakkul is going to be our guest, they say, oh boy, you got the good guy. So here he is. Let's give him a nice welcome. And from the Yemeni-American National Association of Yemeni-Arab Americans, we have the president of NAYA, and we're very fortunate to have with us Abdulhakem Alsadah. Thank you. And from also another super lawyer, we know about you too. You're also a super lawyer, and he's from the Detroit NAACP, and we're very fortunate to have with us to represent the NAACP, Butch Hollowell, ladies and gentlemen, Butch Hollowell. So we're going to get the microphone set up so that you can get into them real good first. Okay, now we have an hour here. We're going to continue on in the same manner. If the audience has anything to interject, feel free to raise your hand and I'll put you on the queue here and we'll give you a chance to talk to our special guests here. We just got 2 or 3 basic questions we're going to ask them to, essentially, first of all, we want them to respond to the issue we just talked about, first of all. And then before that, I'm going to ask each of them to describe their organizations they belong to and the kind of work they do and related to this issue. And then the final question, of course, has to do with anti-Islam and anti-Muslim sentiment in America and how the NAACP can address these concerns. We have to work in the Arab community and in the Muslim community to make sure everyone gets equal treatment in our society. African Americans certainly know about this through history, and there's got a way that we can all work together to make it safe and secure and happy for everybody in the society. So let's start off first of all with Muddasar Tawakkul. We'd like to ask you, please just briefly describe the organizations you belong to relevant to the issue we're doing here and kind of work that you do.
Good evening, everyone. Let me just start off by saying it's an honor and pleasure being here. If I mumble a little, I am fasting and everything, so it's just trying to get acclimated from coming from Ramadan, not fasting, and then trying to fast again today. With that said, good evening. Can we get a good evening? Good evening. All right, I'm in Hamtramck now. If I was in Detroit, it'd be much louder. Good evening. Good evening. All right. With that said, I consider myself what I say a rare breed in the sense that my upbringing, being raised, I was born in Pakistan, but coming here at the age of 3 and being raised in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area, which, like Hamtramck, is very diverse and everything. But unlike many immigrants that come to this country, many of us come from countries that came out of the shackles of colonialism. Many of us came out of shackles. We are fighting what we'd say the men, most likely Europeans ourselves. So many of us come to this country in order to identify with the status quo. So many of us, would like to identify with what we are, white people. So many of us forget to realize that we're minorities ourselves, that we are people of color ourselves. Mr. Myers made a comment about how Arabs are considered white in this country. So the definition of white under the US Census is to be from Middle East, North Africa, and European countries, which makes no sense. So you can be from Sudan and be considered white for the simple fact you speak Arabic and you're from that's considered the Middle East. But to give you a history of why that occurred, and background and leading up to where I am today. In 1972, when the census definitions came up regarding races and everything, you had Asian, white, Hispanic, Latin America. Initially, the Arab community was identified as Asian, as a subcategory Asian. However, the Arab League or the Arab countries at the time lobbied the U.S. government because they did not want to be identified with a minority. They themselves wanted to be considered a part of a majority for economic reasons. So many of them lobbied, and the definition was changed for white to be included as white. Sad to say, with the many Arabs and Muslims in this country, many of us thought we were white until September 11, 2011. If you would ask the Arab or Muslim, what are you September, especially Arabs, and Pakistanis too, what you were on September 10th, 2001, they would say something else compared to what they say something now, which has made it difficult in the legal realm, because when you bring racial discrimination cases, you can't argue that this individual is racist, and legally he's white and you're white. You have to take it to a whole nother level of arguing at ethnic intimidation. You're being discriminated based upon ethnicity rather than race, because historically as race you're considered white. I'm saying that to say, so growing up in America, I knew where my place was as a person of color, as a rights. And from day one, even though my family was Muslim, our family was not religious, so I came out to the Nation of Islam experience and was able to come back to traditional Orthodox Islam. With that said, I was able to identify that with African Americans, which are the largest minority in the United States, if that minority, which has been here for 400 and some years, doesn't have rights, how can any other minority that just comes here, have rights? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Plain simple. So with that concept, we have to learn that you have to work together. And I'll ask a question, especially if you're an immigrant Muslim, how many people came here after 1965? Do you know how we got visas to come here? Before 1965, they had what they call the National Origins Act. The National Origins Act said that there was limitations. There was quotas on immigrants coming from Middle East, Asia, Latin America. All non-white countries had a quota, whereas white countries, European countries, you could come here freely. On 1965, on the backs of the Civil Rights Bill, which was sponsored by groups like NAACP, Dr. King, many other organizations for the rights of freedom, that bill was repealed. So you had an influx of immigration. So many of us who came here on the backs and the rights of the civil rights organizations. And with that dedication, I started getting involved with many organizations. And I see, and we'll discuss this, I don't want to take up the entire time, that many of us have this understanding that NAACP is an African American organization. No, it's not. At the time that NAACP was founded, it was founded by whites, Jews, and African Americans. And nowhere in the objectives of the NAACP is the word African Americans or colored identified. It was an organization to help the largest minority at the time, which was African Americans. However, the struggle of the organization still exists today. And I'm going to end with this, saying that the mission statement of the NAACP is simple, and it'll take away all the misconceptions that this organization is an African American only organization. NAACP, the mission of NAACP is to ensure political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons, to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. With that, that's why I'm part of the NAACP.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Muddasar Tawakkul. We're going to ask Abdulhakem Alsadah now to speak.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to tell you that the brother is fasting and he didn't explain why. Today is the Eid, the smaller day of the greater day tomorrow, which is Eid al-Adha. It's the Hajj Eid. So most Muslims do fast all these 10 days, or some of them. My name is Abdulhakem Muddasar. I'm the president of NAYA. I am professionally a clinical social worker. I've been in this community for the last 25 years. And I have to tell you with great honesty that I thank the NAACP for organizing this forum, because this is what we have been asking the officials of Hamtramck for the last 20 years. 20 years ago, I spoke with Tom in his school. I personally, and he is sitting right there. Good evening, sir, how are you? Fine. And we were talking about the same issues we're talking about today. I have to report to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and to tell you that we are giving a lip service to these issues, and none of us is really doing any real work. And if we sit here and say that we do, then I have to tell you that I am the only guilty one who doesn't. We are not giving this a serious thought. And nothing better than what our students and youth have said when they started this. They all said it started at home. The issues, kids don't discriminate against each other. None of us did. Come on, we are all human. Black, white, green, white. We don't discriminate. We didn't know how to discriminate. We played together. Adults do discriminate. All of us discriminate. The Arab, and I'm only going to speak of the Arabic communities because I'm one. Though all the issues are absolutely similar. Discrimination, ladies and gentlemen, does not differentiate between what my friend here wanted to say. He's a Pakistani, I am a Yemeni, this is Iraqis. Most of you don't even care for the difference, nor do most of you know the difference. It is how we look. Face it, okay? They didn't know a difference between a Pakistani and Indian. We didn't know the difference between a Chinese and none. We don't. Because discrimination has only one face, and it is hatred, and it is how we, the adults, teach our kids to treat other people and the kids. What have we done at the Yemeni community? Because we are the new kids in the block. Let's face it. What you, ladies and gentlemen, at the African American community have suffered, we are right now just taking after you. Simple. The unknown, what is people are afraid of? They're afraid of Simone. She wears a hijab. The counselor there asked the right question. Thank you for asking that question. Well, what is the problem with dating? People don't know what the Muslims do date or don't date. Most parents don't know how to explain themselves to the neighbor, so we have a problem. Whose responsibility then? It is the responsibility of the school and the city officials to bring these issues into the forefront and to discuss them and to bring people with expertise to explain to the students, to the parents, and to the people. That's whose responsibility. We cannot let and blame our students and say, why are they fighting? I think this is a redundant question, should not even be asked. Because the teachers, the schools, and I apologize in advance, because I'm going to be straightforward. I don't mean to offend anybody. But I've been in this for too long not to give a lip service to anybody. Why isn't the Hamtramck schools hosting programs like this? Why? What are they lacking? Money or what is the problem? If it is a problem, then the best thing to solve the problem is to define it, right? So when you define the problem, you admit to the problem, then the third step is to find solutions. I am sorry to say schools in Hamtramck have not done enough into this area. And there is no way around it. But to say that if you think you have a problem, then solve it. Call me, I'm the parents, let us take responsibilities, let us all work together. The police force, ladies and gentlemen, has a responsibility to the society, isn't it? Do you know, all of you that live in Hamtramck, how many times have we asked the police department to be more involved with the community and with the issues of the communities, and how many times have we asked the police department to educate themselves about the newcomers, whether that be Bengalis or Yemenis or Arabs? Well, how many of these programs have been installed? And I swear to God, I was in the police department 20 years ago. when there was a small shooting between students? Do you know what happened when two kids fight in the school? What do the teacher do? The teacher and the counselors. I heard it myself, and I need somebody from the school to stand up and tell me this is not what's happening. If two kids are fighting, these two kids are not identified by themselves, by their names. Abdul and John are fighting. No. It's this Yemeni kid is fighting with the black kid. When the teacher said that, how do you expect the kids not to take it that way? What are we going to do? If the teacher said it's Abdul fighting with John, maybe this is what happened. Then the police comes. They call the police sometimes, which they have. And we have been in the community, whether it's the mosque or our organization or other organizations, have been involved, and then the parents get involved, and this is how the issues are. And I said before I started, I said I'm going to be straightforward in this, because this is, ladies and gentlemen, is a very important issue, and it is a shame in all of us, in this room and outside this room, if we do not address it, and address it responsibly, and address it with opening and truth to it. What happened? It's a Yemeni kid fighting, and then it's a black kid, and then maybe it's a white kid, and then it goes out, and everybody goes, like the students address it, and they get it together, and it becomes a community issue, while it's not a community issue. It's two kids fighting about something. This is where the issue is. So we parents take full responsibility. School takes a full responsibility, and the authorities take a very full responsibility. The city council, the city, they have to somehow come up with certain programs to get the community involved, and I truly cannot thank the NAACP for this opportunity. I think this is a great start, and I honestly think that is what this community needs. And with that, I'm just gonna try to summarize that we've been involved with the schools, trying various organizations. The problem is there is not a continuation, because like Samoon said, every year it's the same fighting. In fact, sometimes it's the same kids. And how funny is that? And it's like we're anticipating there's going to be fighting, and yet we don't anticipate how we're going to deal with it. We anticipate the fighting, and we anticipate the name calling, but we don't anticipate that, you know what, when you plan for your school, part of what you're going to do is, okay, here is what we're going to do. We're going to call a few organizations. We're going to call a few mosque leaders. We're going to call a few church leaders, a few communities during the year, and we're going to have a small talk with the kids, and then we're going to see, well, maybe there is no money. Well, get the community to, maybe the community will help, but initiate the step, make the step forward. And then comes to the teacher. We have great respect for teachers, but you know what? Teachers need to know about other kids. And make it a must. Make it a must. If a teacher is going to come to a school when there is 90% international kids, doesn't matter who they are, the first thing I will ask of the teacher is, you know what, you need to go educate yourself. Educate yourself about how they dress. Educate yourself about their religious holidays. Educate yourself. I could tell you regrettably, I swear to God, regrettably, that some teachers don't even know what most of the most visible holidays for Muslims even are. Other than the lip service. Oh, today it is. Oh, yeah, it is. What is it? They don't know. What do the kids need? How we, the school, could provide special programs in this day. That be for Muslims, Christian, Jews, it doesn't matter. But when I have a school that have multicultural kids, I think it will serve my purpose as an educator to educate myself about these kids. That has not been the case. And what could the NAACP do? And I'm going to summarize with this. The NAACP is a great organization. But for some reason or another, again, I'm going to break this, there is a gap between other civic and social organizations and the NAACP. Maybe because of the gentleman who said, most people think, well, maybe it's just a black organization. Maybe, but I know for the last 2 years or 3 years, the Arabic organizations have made a great attempt, and there is a great cooperation going on. I hope for that to go on, because the mission of the NAACP is the mission of any decent human being, which is acceptance of others, because we're not going anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, for those who think they've been in this town for 200 years or 300 years or 400 years, we're going to be here for the next 50 years and the next 100 years, and we're not going anywhere, and everybody needs to take a note of that. And you could call me a Yemeni, call me Iraqi, call me Pakistani, but I am an American as good as anybody else, and you ought to take a thought of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alsadah, I thank you for your comments, and as you're praising the NAACP, I want to also extend the praise to everyone who showed up here, because obviously you all are concerned about this issue, and we really appreciate that you are going to take this back with you, and maybe we'll get something done in the city about these issues, continue the conversation. And now we're going to turn it on to our third special guest. This is Butch Hollowell, the General Counsel from the Detroit NAACP.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. Well, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to go back to the students for a minute. They were all incredibly impressive. I do have to say that Simone is going to be in Congress. I mean, just incredibly poised, and I just can't believe how clearly she was and how at ease she was in front of everybody. Did you notice that? I mean, just amazing. So I will say this: I'm with the NAACP in Detroit, and I serve as their chief counsel. I did come. You asked a little bit about the organization. I did come to the organization from a very young age. My grandmother, when I was in 5th grade, got me an album. I know there are just CDs now, but there was actually an album back then of Dr. King's speeches. And she got it for me for my birthday, and I memorized all the speeches. And she entered me into speech contests. And so I won one of the contests, the Brother Rice Invitational. And after that, I started giving speeches, and I started thinking, oh, I like what he's saying in these speeches. And that's when I started thinking about becoming a lawyer and a civil rights lawyer. I also have in my blood this, which I didn't know until a little bit later, which is interesting. My Uncle Donald Hollowell was one of the great legal minds of the civil rights movement. He was Dr. King's chief lawyer and was Thurgood Marshall's right-hand man. So he was the one who argued the case that desegregated the University of Georgia, and you know, I heard about the cases, you know, where he would be defending Dr. King in, let's say, criminal cases in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, and very often they would be in a courthouse, and there'd be a mob outside that wanted to string them up. And so they would have to not just argue the case and win the case, but they had to get out of there alive. So I heard stories about how they had to figure out the logistics of how to get cars outside of the bathroom windows so that they could leave through the bathroom, go out of the bathroom window, get into a waiting car, and he and Dr. King would often lay in the trunk of the car, side by side, as they would escape of some of these dusty courthouses in Alabama, Mississippi, and other places in the Deep South. So when I think of the cases that I'm involved in, on behalf of the NAACP, and I think it's a difficult case. You know, Muddasar and I were just talking about a case that I'm getting ready to bring dealing with redistricting, and I think this is a tough case. They had tough cases, you know, and so I also brought with me here today the pamphlet from today's funeral of Dr. Arthur L. Johnson. Some of you remember Dr. Johnson, but I'm not going to let this opportunity at this forum here today pass without saying a few words about the great Dr. R. Johnson. He passed away a couple days ago, and he was the long-standing president of the NAACP in Detroit, as well as prior to that time, he was the executive director. What a lot of people don't realize, he held both roles for some. He was the only person to have ever held both positions. He was in that great class of 1948 at Morehouse College, So he was a classmate of Dr. King's at Morehouse. And when he graduated, the National NAACP asked him to leave at Georgia and come to Detroit to kind of put Detroit on the map, which he very much did. He transformed the Detroit chapter into what it is today, which is the largest chapter in the United States. Reverend Nick Hood, a lot of you know Nick Hood, who was on the Detroit City Council, but his father came before him on the city councils. And Reverend Nicholas Hood Sr. got up this afternoon and said something that I thought was also important that I didn't know about the founding of the NAACP. He says, a lot of you don't remember this, but they didn't have a building. They were working out of a place on Gratiot Avenue. They had no money. And the guys who owned the Gotham Hotel, and back in the day, because the city was not integrated, you had to have your own hotels and your own hospitals and your own, shoe stores and all this. This was pre-integration Detroit. Okay, so you had black hotels. Don't have them today, but you had back then. So they had the Gotham Hotel. They were, they said this. Judge Keith was there. He said, they were numbers runners, but they supported the NAACP, and they would bring a little check in the afternoon to pay the secretary and to keep the lights on, and it grew. And so Dr. Johnson, one of the first things he did when he got his feet on the ground is none of the hospitals here were not integrated, and so if you got ill, you had to go to Kerwood, Sumby, what was it? Bethune was another one, and Dunbar, and so they were trying to integrate the hospitals. My father was one of the first doctors to integrate. He was the first black surgeon here. Like some of you know, Dr. Melvin Hollowell. Art Johnson latched on to the fact that there's often federal money that is involved as it relates to the hospitals and what the hospitals take. So he began to fight the hospitals to admit black doctors so that we could treat all patients. And he was able to convince Phil Hart, who was then the U.S. Senator, to say, you know what, we're not going to let any federal money come in here if you're not going to let African-American doctors practice medicine. It broke open the hospital system, including for doctors like my father. Again, like I said, who was the first surgeon here. And what I didn't know until the funeral today was that group of doctors was so grateful for what Dr. Johnson had done to open up the healthcare field here in the area that they decided to band together, and they put together the first Freedom Fund dinner here in Detroit, which of course now is the largest sit-down dinner in the United States. And I knew of Dr. Lionel Swan in terms of his role in the original, but I never knew that the black doctors were the ones who really were the foundation for that. So I'm very proud to be in the organization. We've got a lot of things going on. I'm just going to take another second to talk about that. We've got a lot of very active cases. Many of them deal with the lack of understanding between people. That's really what it all comes down to. And how do you bridge that? It's always, an interesting question. I think, frankly, it takes a lot. But very often you can't break down a barrier unless you're kind of with somebody, kind of in the trenches. So very often I found that that's what breaks down barriers. I'm also a musician and a singer. And I know that, for example, if you're in the band with somebody, or you're singing, or you're playing music with somebody, all those barriers break down. I played sports growing up. If you're on a sports team, and you're in the locker room, and you're on the field, and all that, very often that breaks down a lot of barriers. So if you're kind of in a situation where you don't have peer pressure, and you can just see people for who they are, it helps a lot. When I was in college, I had never met anyone who'd grown up on a farm. But there were a number of people who came from farming backgrounds that was new to me, when I went away to school. So, I had these conceptions in my mind about what they were, and I'm sure they had the same conceptions about me, and hopefully some of those things broke down a little bit. That gets us to one of our lawsuits. We're now in federal court. They passed a constitutional amendment here in Michigan known as Proposal 2. Remember when Ward Connerly came in to ban affirmative action. And it passed by an overwhelming margin, by 58%. And our so-called liberal friends, a lot of them voted for that. You know, it passed with 58% of the vote, as I said. Well, we filed a challenge in federal district court to stop that implementation. We lost in federal district court, but it was appealed. We appealed it to the United States Court of Appeals, and we did get an opinion this summer in July of the United States Court of Appeals. We won that case, where a 2-to-1 panel indicated that schools can use diversity, because that's really what we're talking about in here. We're talking about diversity. Why is that important, you know? You can have diverse classrooms. Universities and colleges can't do that in order to have excellence. And that is what diversity is. That's the principle. That has been the front principle of the NAACP for much of the past century, and that is equal access to good education. So the Attorney General, Bill Schuette, the new Attorney General, has appealed it again, which we knew he would. And so now the full Sixth Circuit in Cincinnati, there are 9 judges that were appointed by Republican presidents and 7 judges that have been appointed by Democratic presidents. They will hear the case in March. And after that, there'll be another appeal, as you probably all know. This will go to the U.S. Supreme Court. But the principle is important for us to fight, and that is, again, diversity in the classroom. Because when you see different outcomes, when you see different points of view, you become better. You're smarter, you're more intelligent, and you say, oh, I didn't know about that perspective, I didn't know about that perspective. I also want to say that we're working very hard on classroom overcrowding. We met with the emergency financial manager last Friday, Roy Roberts. We're very concerned, and if we don't get some relief in the area of overcrowding, we will file a case as well against the state, which has jurisdiction now over Detroit schools. Our independent reports are that Detroit classrooms have now 50 to 60 to 70 students per class. Now imagine, how many people would you say is in this room today? If you had to count.
50.
Huh?
Or 60.
All right, so can you imagine 60 third graders in a classroom? That is not education. And teachers can't teach and students can't learn. And that is a return to Brown versus Board of Education, separate but unequal. I made that case to the superintendent, Reverend Anthony, I did on Friday. He has indicated that he will get back to us quickly, but if that does not occur, I can assure you we'll challenge that in court as well. I think the last thing that I'll deal with is the issue as it relates to redistricting, and also these are different communities working together. These are the lines of political boundaries that have been drawn, the maps that have been drawn for Congress and for the State House and Senate are absolutely unjustified, and we believe illegal under the Voting Rights Act. And one of the things that they did, which was most troubling, and I served as legal counsel for the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, as well as for the NAACP, is that they took the Hispanic community in Southwest Detroit, which is a very politically cohesive and culturally cohesive community, and they drew the line right down the middle, split it right down the middle, so that the Hispanic community would be eviscerated, and so that it would not be able to elect a candidate of their choosing. And so we talked about Muslim and Arabic and African American relations. Also, I think we should be talking about the Black-Brown coalition, the Black, with the Latino community as well, many different communities. So I'm very pleased to be here today. I think this is awesome. I think that whenever we have these fissures, these tensions, these breaks in between communities of color, those in power love it. They love it. As long as we're fighting amongst ourselves, they're loving it. We have to figure out a way to bridge those gaps, because if we come together and we exercise our power through the ballot and other instances, there's no stopping us. That's what I have to say.
Yes, thank you. Let's give a nice round of applause to our three guests. You hit the last point, you hit right on the spot. I appreciate that's exactly what we're all trying to find common ground here in Hamtramck. And when you say common ground, I didn't know you were a singer and a musician. I'm a musician, so we have something else in common. Okay. And we also have some issues in common here. We all want a good educational system here for sure. We all want peace and security in our lives. And it's not bad to have some good friends next door living to us, so whatever nationality or color they are. The whole society works much better when we can all get along. It does start on a personal one-to-one basis, for sure, first of all. And I think blaming parents or whatever, I think what we're really saying here is adults are responsible. Adults not only at home, but adults in education and school and teachers, adults politicians, adults running our government, the adults who are setting policy. Those are the ones who are also responsible. So we're not trying to blame anybody here at this point. We just want to try to find out how to fix this issue. I do want to mention some statistics before we open it up to any comments, remarks, questions you might have. Hamtramck here, for example, if you're not aware of the fact, Hamtramck has probably the highest percentage of Muslims in any city in America. According to Dawood Walid from CARE, estimated anywhere between 50–60% of Muslims live in Hamtramck. That's by far the highest, more than half of the people in the city. Arabs and Muslims in government are very few in number. We have probably 1 or 2 elected officials in the entire history of Hamtramck in the Arab community, Muslim community. Michigan, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, has more hate groups in Michigan than any other state in the country. We're very fortunate in Hamtramck to not have any serious incidences. We're going to make sure we don't have any, and this is the way we prevent it, by talking together and finding ways to solve these issues before they get out of control. So we do have issues just like everybody else. There's racism in America. I don't think any of us are trying to cover up the idea that this exists, and even though we don't like to admit that, statistics show that there's hate in this country, and we want to fight it off. So we also should mention that not all Muslims, for example, are not Arabs. We all understand that. There's Chaldean Arabs that are Christian. There's Palestinians who are Christians also. So we're not talking only about Muslim Arabs. We're talking about Arabs, people of color. Let's put it that way, because as our friend here, Alsadah, said, it's the skin color. It gets down to that point. It doesn't matter what your nationality is or what country you're from. People pick on each other because of their color, or defy them an opportunity because of their color, or because they're gay, or because some other issues, the way they act in society. So we want to make sure that each of us has equal opportunity in this land that we're trying to create of democracy and freedom. So I'd like to have some remarks or questions from the audience. Anybody have anything to say to our guests? Okay, Bob Zolik, let's start this out.
My comment relative to the statement you made that the city officials and the school officials should be in that leadership role. Granted, I agree with you there. But with that leadership, it's important, incumbent, that the community encourage and be there to encourage that leadership. Now, I probably have a better attendance record at our city council meetings than our elected officials, some of our elected officials. And I can't speak for the school. But I do not see the diversity of residents and other group community leaders participating in those processes. And I say that because, granted, unless there's that pressure to make changes, and as you mentioned, with respect to the police department, and the cultures that exist in the police department, we've been trying for years to change and break that culture. But again, it needs the pressure from the community and from all the various leaders to continue to make that pressure to change. Unfortunately, as an attorney knows, we deal with contracts, we deal with litigation, we deal with a number of obstacles in trying to make changes. And we, within the NAACP, have raised a number of issues, a number of things that we wanted to do within the city. But again, it goes by the side because we don't have that constant pressure from all the various communities we have in this community, in Hamtramck. And I'd like to look, yes, I'm running for public office, but I also identify the fact we have a 20-20-20-20 situation in Hamtramck. 20% Arab, 20% Bangladesh or Indian, 20% African American, 20% Polish, and the rest 20% mixed. But yet I don't see those numbers coming and participating in the city. So I agree with you. There should be leadership, but the leadership should also get the support from the community. They should be at these public meetings, voice opinions, and be critical. It's got to be a constant thorn in their side. That way we'll get changes made, and you'll see the leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. I do agree with you, and I have to say that anybody will blame anybody for their mistakes is making a mistake and doing a disservice to themselves. And I wanted to set the record straight when I spoke about the school, city officials, and the police department. They are the leaders in the community. They are, by virtue of what they do, the leaders of this community. If our school does not take its full moral and legal responsibilities in educating our children, and then year after year, when we have fights after fight, month after month, I think it's a problem. I mean, what is it going to take? Kids killing each other, and then we're going to say, I am sorry? I stand right here. I will stand right here, and of all our respected educators. I spoke about these issues 20 years ago. And I am telling you right now, I've been continued in my work as a social worker and other capacities, and it's the same problems every year. And I have seen in every other community. We meet for economic reasons. If we need to sweep our streets, we get the communities, the business right, and we do that. When we have an issue, we meet, we do the community. When it comes to our own kids, when it comes to our own understanding and our existence, we have not seen any offer. With all due respect to you, not the mayor, not the city council, we have not seen a great efforts where we say, okay, how about if we get a conference like this? Get all the communities leaders. And I am not here endorsing one community over the other. I'm talking about community issues. Cleaning the street is my responsibility and yours. It doesn't matter what color you are. Getting a good education, your kids and my kids, we need them to get a good education. That have nothing to do with colors or barriers. Where are these meetings? Where have they taken place? Why aren't the politicians taking place? We wait until something happens and then we say, well, I did this, I had a perfect record, I did this, I did that, and then politicians fight among themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about 5 kilos or maybe 1 mile. Come on, we should know each other better. I mean, this is not like a huge community where we could blame each other and say, you know what, I didn't know my neighbor. No, you know your neighbor. Just make the effort. That's all it takes. And when I spoke directly to those people in the top, because it is their moral and their legal responsibilities to address these issues that they are not foreign to them. Bear in mind, now, if we have different issues every time, I could say, yes, we need to deal with them. It's the same issue. Thank you, go ahead.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And now, Mia. This is wonderful, okay? And I'd like to thank NAACP for getting us out here. Unfortunately, this type of forum does not take place the way it needs to. It needs to happen more often. It needs to happen with the city officials, the community leaders, the liaison from the NAACP, or other organizations that we have in this community. It's not being utilized. You cannot have one forum and one meeting and solve anything. It's not going to happen. These type of forums need to happen periodically, whether it be a quarterly or more often. You cannot wait for violence to take place, for our children to be hurt, then all of a sudden, oh, let's sit down and find a solution. The problem has never went anywhere. The problem has been there when I went to Hamtramck High School back in the 1990s. And the problem still continues today. We had those fights back in '91 when I was attending Hamtramck High School. I was probably the 6th or 7th, colored individual in that school. it was a handful of us. And we faced those issues. Now you have maybe 50-50 or whatever the numbers are, I don't have, but you're still facing the same issues today. Those issues not going to go away, and it's not going to go away with us holding one forum or one meeting and understanding some of the young guys that came up there before some of their issues. I'm sorry, I forget your name. Tisa Franklin. As the way she brought up the issue, it has a lot to do with the differences that we are facing. It's not only about racism, it's about what do you have on versus what do I have on. I can go and date, this nice young lady. Next thing you know, I'm having problem from her group of people. Why are you taking my girl? Even though that has nothing to do with him or anybody else. So a lot of those issues are coming from the community because of knowledge. We have neighborhoods that neighbors don't even know their names. They don't even know who or how many people is living next door to them. Whether it's a family or an old gentleman or an older couple that maybe I need to keep an eye out for. I look out for my neighbor because I want them to do the same for me. That's right. So we need to have, and I urge not only NAACP, but any other community organization that's out here, let's make these forums a regular thing instead of waiting for some boil to pop and then we talk about issues. Let's talk about these on a more consistent basis so we're not waiting for children to be hurt or waiting for our community just be so distanced from each other that we have no idea who our neighbors are or what's going on in this neighborhood. Like you said, very small community. We should be able to walk out here and know maybe 50% of the neighborhood out here. I should be able to walk down my street and know 90% of the homes and who live there and what their first names are. Not only one or two. And that's the only way you're going to get away from the issues that we are facing as far as the differences. Once we all get together, sit down, understand the struggles, understand the differences, we're all human. At the bottom line, we're all human. It has nothing to do with where we come from. I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, just like you said. I'm raising 2 kids. They're not going anywhere. I am more American than anybody else, and vice versa.
Good place. My experience is that people don't like to be lectured to. And so when we talk about with our kids, it's like, you need to do this. I don't think it really works that way. I think people need a project. They need something that they can work together on. And I think we can say you should be getting together, but if it doesn't feel natural, it might not happen. So I think we could use forums like this as a launching pad to say, okay, is there some project we can work together on? Is it a voter registration thing? Is it a community cleanup thing? Is it, whatever it is, is it a play? Is it music? Is it something where they can work together on, as opposed to just saying this is what you should do? Because I think if you just tell people this is what you should do, I don't think that naturally happens. So I think my sense is that people come together because they're in the trenches working together, and that helps to break down a lot of barriers.
I also want to mention that we're very honored to have with us as a guest the superintendent of Hamtramck High Schools is here today. He chose to come here today when he has many choices of things to do, and we respect Tom Nijai for being part of the guests here. Thank you for coming, Mr. Nijai. Did you want to say something?
Hi, I'd just like the panel to understand that, yes, these type of forums that we're talking about here do not exist in Hamtramck Public Schools. But I'm not sure everyone in the community understands what is going inside the schools. We have a program called Restorative Practices that we've been using for the last 3 years. And when there's an issue between students, we bring in the students, we bring in the parents, we sit around in a circle, and we bring in community leaders also and solve that problem. And this process has been going on for the last 3 years. It doesn't fix everything, but I think it's a start. And when you hear the kids talk about, things are better, there's less fighting, it's true. It absolutely is true. We're far from perfect. Racism, discrimination is in everyone's mind. It's almost like pornography. I mean, you can't really define it, but when you see it, you go, aha, we know what's going on, or what that is. It is a very important thing. I also want everyone to be aware, at Hamtramck High School, we earned a grant. We worked hard for it from General Motors and United Way of Southeastern Michigan. And on the 16th of this month, we are having a community roundtable. We're inviting as many people as we possibly can to come to this meeting and learn about it. We no longer, when Mr. Iveza and I have a fist fight, do we just kick the kids out of school, come back in 5 days, come back in 10 days, and go back and sit in the corner. We have in-school suspension now at Hamtramck High School. We have mentors that go there with the students. We have family councils based that came from Highland Park in Detroit to actually be there in the school, community people, to work out the differences between NUO and I. And I just want everyone to be aware of it. Way back when in Holbrook School, we had ambassadors of peace. And I believe these forums are fantastic. The problem is some of the people that are angry from both sides. And I believe that anger comes from something really bad happened to them as kids. And we would like to help them, but to get them to come out for something is very, very difficult. We started this year a parent telephone system where we have an activity, for example, open house or something. We call every house in the district to come out to the activity. And we truly do respect the Muslim community. Monday, there is no school, there is no activities going on. Tuesday, we have an in-service. So, I mean, it's not perfect, don't claim that, but sincerely, Hamtramck Public Schools is trying to make it a good place.
Thank you, sir. You're a great educator. You really are. And we do appreciate you and appreciate all the teachers. I'm sure I speak for all the parents. And what we are saying is we appreciate everything you're doing, and we do perfectly understand your hands are tied because of budget, of other issues. We do understand that. But in the same time, we are saying we are willing to work with you in putting things, permanent programs, where the brother there said it is a constant program that always in mind to start a dialogue all the time, and that may alleviate some of the tensions in the community. But I just want to thank you, and you know we've been working together for the last 20 years, so you are a great educator.
We are willing to hold forums like this in the public schools, but also, and I think everyone in this room is aware of that, there's also a very serious class struggle going on. And no matter what nationality or group are you, unfortunately, some of the people feel, if I make the other guy feel worse, it makes me feel better. So, and no one wants to be bottom. No one wants to be on the bottom. So if it's a Arabic student or it's an African-American student, a Caucasian student, if they can make the other one become lower, it rises them up. I mean, and I'm saying that I agree with that, but that's how many of you do it. And so especially my group is tougher than your group. My group is cooler than your group. And all that stuff is just so wrong because we can get so much further ahead by working together. The sports, the teamwork, the musicians, all that stuff. I mean, it's hard. But if we really pull together, we can do it. In my younger days, at Holbrook School, I really thought, well, I don't need the teachers that much. I've got some energy. I could get some of these stuff going on. Went to a bigger school and found out absolutely not. I need the teachers to get all these, improvement plans going. So teamwork, teamwork, teamwork.
But your leadership has made a difference.
Okay, we have time for two more. What do you call it? Comments from the audience. Okay.
I guess I would say more of a reflection on my part. I think I can top the other students that talked who were from the public schools here, because I went through Hamtramck High School in the 60s. And so when you go back that far and you can look forward and see this community and where it's evolved, it does give you some perspective. And I think the perspective is maybe illustrated through just one moment of time back in that era, and that was in 1969 when we had some of the black history instructors who had started black studies, African American studies in the high school programs of the city of Detroit. One of those teachers came and got a job in Hamtramck Public Schools. It's one of the first African American instructors that we had at that school at that time. And there was a need to create a Black Histories program at Hamtramck High School. They also attempted to address and connected to that initiative or that idea was this whole idea about justice inside of education and the need for more equality and openness in the dialogue of what was happening in our classrooms. And that was happening in other city schools as well. It also happened at Northern High School, which is on Woodward, and at that particular school, they actually captured that moment in history the Mosaic Youth Theater has through a play called Northern Lights, which really talks about that time in history and what the struggle was of students and how we failed as a society to address the needs of students. And so, coming back to Hamtramck and what happened here, we had community. I happened to be the president of the senior class, and we actually created forums to talk about the need for the Black History program. And the response from the school board members at that time was there was no need for such a program. And the reason for that is that those kids that want that can't read anyway. And so if they can't read, why would they need those books? And so we went on strike. And all the students of the school, we walked out, and we stayed out for 2 days. And from that, there was some kind of a small recognition that there was a need for that kind of a program. Unfortunately, nothing really changed. And what actually happened was our classes, we did institute an African American history class for a couple of years. And that teacher actually then left not long after that. And so what you could see is that there was this moment where people did galvanize, we did take action, there was a small change in the schools, but we're fighting against this time of a larger society and the classism that Tom talked about and the racism that we're all surrounded by here. And so we have to think about how do we counter that today? And I think we're all struggling with that idea, how to describe it, how to define it, how to take action with it. And I think all I can say is, sure, it is so important to do what we're doing, and this is a noble start. I think, though, that raising it up to the level of being a moral issue is really where we're all having to go. Because then we can counter things and figure out how to take steps. And I think we have to do that. We need to move faster within our institutions. Not just in our public schools, but in our community colleges, in our universities, in any of our educational institutions. We really do need to transform faster if we're going to stay some semblance of a democracy.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we're actually running out of time, and I do want to give the last word to Ms. Meyer, but we have a guest here too.
Thank you. Just a case in point, last night, casually at dinner, before I knew that I was going to be here, I had a discussion about a book, and it was called The Real Terrorist, and in the book there weren't any Arabs at all in that book. My name is Eric Kimberly.
Tell me the name of the book. It's the first book that has no Arabic terrorists in it.
The Real Terrorist, okay? This running for school board knows about the book. She has it, as a matter of fact. My name is Eric Kimberly. 25 years ago, I became a member of, a lifelong member of the NAACP. And 25 years ago, I kind of let the NAACP carry on my fight. But as I can see that I need to re-engage myself. My background is in business. And in business, it is how do you get the job done, day in and day out. It's about making money. As I told one individual here, I used to work in Hamtramck. And here in Hamtramck, it was, our company was part of a large multinational that was a group of companies that worked together to make one product. And I'm telling you, all over the United States. And so the problem was, is how do I get this guy to work with me so that we can all become successful? Daily, 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 daily. So I'm saying that here in America, we have a business model. We live the business model every day, okay? And they say the business model is not working because we're not making any money, right? In other words, we can't figure out how to employ each other. The fabric of society is torn, ripped. And by you three guys there, we got at least 3 parts right there, okay? So how do we mend it together? A lot of good intentions. We all can agree we heard a lot of good intentions here, right? So how do we bring those good intentions together? I got one suggestion, is that we create a project for our kids, okay, to teach themselves how to get along. Obviously, you can't get it at home. There's too many, I don't know, other kind of issues involved with administration. Kids teach themselves. I'm a social worker. I do a little social work, and so I've got certain speeches that I give. Okay, fabric of the society is one of them. Okay, but I'd say this is that in every forum, okay, you've got, like I said, there's 3 people there, okay, that represent the NAACP from different areas, okay, and if you 3, for example, can come up with a project that you say that that we can work on and bring forward and say, this is success. What have we learned, okay? And for what you've learned, and you tell another person what you've learned and create the same project, that's how you build the fabric, okay? It begins to mend together. And it's a simple thing to do. I'm the last speaker, so I guess I can't go. One more? Okay. But I'll be back here in Hamtramck, and I'm interested, so I'll be around.
Let's give you a chance to listen to the lady who we all know in Hamtramck here. She's an icon here. This is Miss Yvonne Meyer. She's on the school board. She's been an activist almost all her life here in Hamtramck, and she always has some words of wisdom to say. But you have to keep it brief this time because we're running out of time. So here's Miss Meyer.
I can't promise you that. But I'll say this to you, gentlemen. It's my pleasure to see you here and hear you today.
Always a pleasure seeing you.
My name is Yvonne Meyer. I first became active in NAACP when I was 18 years old because of a roach and hot chocolate. I went to a store where I was going to business school at night and I worked during the day for the government. I went to a store and there bought some hot chocolate and there was a roach. When I went to the man to tell him there was roach in it, he said it's not a roach. So what he did was block the door to keep me from going out. And that actually happened. So there was a gentleman sitting there, and I said to the gentleman, I said, isn't this a roach? The man said, yes, it's a roach. Then I said, then I'm going out of here. And I had the hot chocolate. I said, I'm going to the Board of Health. He grabbed me with that hot chocolate. And the hot chocolates went all over his magazines. Then I was so frightened, I didn't know what to do. I ran across the street and told my boss. And so he said to me, what? That happened to you? Well, I'll tell you what happened afterwards. Gloucester Curran. Do you remember Gloucester Curran? He was in charge of NAACP then. We took it to court. Do you know what? I won the case for NAACP. And I joined it then at the age of 18 years old. And have been a member ever since, and now a life member right here in Hamtramck. And I have been the president of NAACP here in Hamtramck. So I have a story to tell, but I'll tell it another time. But it is my pleasure being here again. I am a part of this community, and I shall do whatever I can to help this gentleman here and the other people that are here to do what they can do for this community, because we must move on and make it better for our children and those that are coming after us. And I just wanted to tell you all this part of my story, and it's my pleasure to be with you this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And that is only a small portion of what she's done in her life, so thank you. And one day, very soon, maybe the NAACP will have a special event where we can, once again, honor and learn about the history of what's going on in the city for all these years. Special great thanks to our three panelists. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special occasion. Butch, Hollowell, and Abdulhakem Alsadah, and Muddasar Tawakkul. They very great contributions to our event. And thank you to everyone here. It's not over. The food's here. Socialize, hang out if you want to. Thank you for being part of this event with the NAACP. If you'd like to be a member and you're not a member now, we have membership forms here. And here's the lady who will help you out, Marla Swin, right there. Thank you for coming.